the looks that your characters gave each other was all I needed to know. That was all I knew. I was like, okay.
So much said in such little time.
Anytime that you work with a visionary, prolific director, whether it's McQueen, Jordan Peele, Coogler, and Nolan now, I feel like they always give you a specific task of something like greater to do in the film. And this time, you're playing two different characters in this movie. So what was it about Christopher Nolan's process in particular that may have made you approach these roles differently, even though, we see Helen mostly. We don't see as much as her sister, but to approach these very different characters?
Well, I think every director is different, right? And so, and I love that about my job because any role that I play is a collaboration with the artists that put the characters could get together, and the director is chief among those collaborators. Chris is very detail oriented, and he is very generous with like sharing his vision for the character, the story arc. So approaching this started off with long and deep conversations with him.
And John, for you, this film, it highlights the war, but it's also more about the impacts of the war and how it carries on in these people. And one thing I like about your characters, like we can really see the impact and everything that happened in the war and how he carries that on himself. And I feel like we immediately see that the first time we see him on screen. What was it like being able to bring that interiorness, even though we see a little bit of the battles, but not a lot of the battles, but we can see those impacts, just how he carries himself.
The cost of war, right? And I think that's, look, I'm enormously grateful and honored that I've gotten to spend so much time with folks who have walked in those shoes, and I think it's something that you just sort of feel palpably. I think since sort of at the core of the story, it's a search for a man to come home and for a boy to find his father. That cost is so important, and to sort of be able to convey, through this lavish setting of this meal, this feast, these people sort of sitting down and talking and merriment, that behind it, that there's a cost to all of it, and I think there's something, really in a real soldier's mentality, that where are you really at home? What is the real you? And is it, with all the food and the drink and the merriment and the conversation, or is it back with your brothers and at this time where you felt most alive? And the survivor's guilt and the remorse and the regret of everything that may have happened, especially with why this war started. And now he's sitting there right next to, his everything, so I'm glad you felt that way. And I think what an honor for me to be a part of this unbelievable, the size and scope of this film, and to be able to participate in a filmmaker's vision that is so clear and so cogent, but also giving you the room to have a real backstory and a real interior, and to not only allow that, but to demand it.
Yeah, the looks that your characters gave each other was all I needed to know. That was all I knew. I was like, okay.
So much said in such little time.
Yes. But thank you both so much for chatting with me. Can't wait to see this film again. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you for coming in.
What's most compelling about me to your performance here is like a lot of the transformation from, from the aging, from like playing the character younger to older. And then also, you're playing someone who's blind. I read that you consulted with someone who had lost eyesight before about this.
I took the role very seriously, and especially being sight impaired in the movie. So a high school friend of mine, Gina Velasquez, who's sight impaired, and I spent time with her, watched her, she moved, and then I walked around the house with no light to try to see that. And then I studied a lot of elderly people. I mean, I'm old, but not that old. So I was studying elderly people to get the body and the physicality and to get it all right.
Yeah. I want to know how those physical aspects of inhabiting the character helped you kind of find the heart of the character at the same time.
Oh, that's a beautiful question. I think definitely finding the impairment of not being able to see, and the age and the way they aged me, definitely helped me feel like my life was ending, and I was in the sunset of my life, and then here comes my surrogate son, Odysseus. And all those emotions verge together. They converge together, and
Odysseus is kind of like overarching character in the background through all the scenes. Even though the scenes that he's not in, we kind of feel, this epic hero.
His presence.
And I feel like your characters, the first time we kind of see highlights of both, not only his strengths, but his flaws as well. We can kind of see an outline. It's like where there may be differences between this hero we know, but also a flawed hero. So what was it like to have your character kind of be the audience's insight into, he does have flaws as well?
It was great. I mean, the complexities of that relationship were really thrilling to dig into. I spent a lot of time with Matt and Chris sort of discussing this when we had the odd moments of just kind of going, how are we going to dig into that, to those moments, where I defy him to make certain decisions, and actually how painful that is for Yura, because he doesn't want to be doing that.
Yeah.
But he's seeing someone falling apart in front of his eyes, and he's got to protect these men.
Yeah.
So it was a really the complexity that Chris has afforded the hero of his story, because he, the intelligence to know that this isn't a story about a heroic, a simply heroic man. He's a very complex man with a lot of flaws, and he's not scared to examine that.
Yeah, and also adds to the film's humanity as well, because I feel like it's such an epic tale, but then the way the film presents it is kind of like, it's also about family.
Yeah.
It's also about like the impact of war, and that could be something that you could, if you rip away the epicness and the grand scale of this, and it being like a Greek tragedy, like it is also at the same time, a story about family.
Well, the part that hit me the most was when Odysseus, Matt Damon, is on the steps and having remorse about everything he's done in his life.
Amazing.
I don't know, that hit me so hard as a man, and thinking back on my life and all the mistakes I made. It was such a powerful moment to see men having remorse, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you both so much for chatting. I can't wait to see this film again and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, man.
Thank
Great
you.
questions.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Those were smart questions.